Thanks everyone for joining. We're going to take a look at, and want to be clear, it's not Vault. These are the utilities for Vault that have been written by the software development team here at IMAGINiT. And I want to do a few things just before we get started. Just kind of review who we are as a company, who I am, some of those different types of things. So who am I? So my name is Caleb Funk. I'm one of the technical team managers with IMAGINiT, focusing on manufacturing solutions. And I've been working with IMAGINiT. This is my 19th year, which is shocking to me because I'm pretty sure I'm 27 years old. So it's been quite a while that I've been working with the different tools. I started out in the way back days with just Inventor. We didn't even have Vault yet, and we moved into working with the Vault tools and on down the line. And having worked with the Vault tools a long time, it's been really very, very useful to me personally to start using a lot of these utilities. And while we're going to talk about what's new, I am going to weave in some of the different things that have already been there that may not have been used too much. There's the usefulness of these it's pretty impressive, and I really think that if you don't have them now, it's definitely worth taking a look at. So who IMAGINiT is and what we do. So a big part of my team, that technical solutions team, is kind of involved with somewhere in this pyramid one way or the other. So it's possible we could be talking to you about possible technology solutions that make sense. Just a little bit before this call, it's exactly what I was doing. Companies were reviewing different possible software that could be used, and we were looking through that. And a lot of times, once customers are using a particular solution, they're looking to optimize that. And that's really what, like the utilities that we're going to be talking about here in a little bit, that's part of what that is, yep, Autodesk has this solution, and what we're looking at is using these additional things to optimize it so we can begin to use it. And we continue that with productivity, training, and support, so that all of your users are aware of how to use the software, the best way to access the software. And a lot of times that's all part of this triangle. It just kind of keeps going as people come up to speed, new software comes out, new things become available, and we work with that process. It's like I said, within the 19 years at IMAGINiT, there's some companies I've worked with for probably at least 15 years where we're just revisiting or working with, partnering on new topics, and that's been one of the things I've really enjoyed about working with IMAGINiT. We do have offices all across North America, and you know what, last time I did one of these, I was talking with my marketing person, and I said, Cassie, I need an updated map, and she got me one, and I did nothing with it. So while this will give you an idea of the scope of where we're at, we are also have more offices in California now, and we're more thickly populated throughout the western region. So we've moved into those territories more and more. I am in one of these red push pins right here clustered in Ohio. I've been based out of Toledo, Ohio. Probably for all 19 years I've been with IMAGINiT would be my guess. So IMAGINiT is actually part of a larger company called RAND Worldwide. We're the division that works with the Autodesk products, the Leico Geosystems for scanning, and then we also do services and training and all of that. We have a sister company, another division called RAND 3D, that is a provider of Dassault software solutions, Dassault and PTC training, and then Ascent we work very closely with. If you've ever taken an AutoCAD class, an Inventor class with IMAGINiT, you've probably used Ascent courseware. It may not even been with IMAGINiT. It might be another company altogether, but Ascent courseware is pretty widely recognized throughout the industry. So we produced a lot of the documentation for Autodesk. We've worked with them on that. We also work specifically with companies who have a very specific workflow. Maybe they've got something where it's a large organization. They want this to show up, to be tailored to them, and we've worked with that as well. So that's kind of the big, broad overview of who we are in general and who I am. And let's get in here. We'll just dive in and take a look at the utilities. So a couple of things, and I've run into this recently, and I just wanted to, I thought, well, I've got a forum here. I might as well just point it out to some people. There is a Vault client utility that we have written, and there is a Vault server utility, and these are separate programs. So the server utilities are not required to run the client utilities. And what will happen is you'll see that the client utilities, the utilities for the Vault client, they're really user-focused. It's things you're going to run into, maybe not on a day-to-day basis, but guaranteed on a week-to-week. It's something where And we'll talk about some of these, creating new folders, getting links, creating documentation in terms of PDFs or DWFs. It's really user-focused. And it's really looking at those day-to-day tasks that you're getting into, whether it's checking out a bunch of files at once, whatever it would be. The server utilities are completely separate. So you could not have any of the client utilities and still have the server. You could not have the server and still have all the client, either way. Or, even better, have both of them. But the idea is on the server side, it's going to be administration focused. And where it really looks at is security, understanding security, how the different pieces fit together, backup of files, backing up to Vault, having a graphic user interface for that, and then publishing files out. So those areas are what we're going to look at. So what I'm going to look at first is the client utilities. And since this is focused on what's new within the client utilities, we'll just kind of jump into that first. And what I'm going to do over the next 2 hours is very slowly read a whole bunch of PowerPoints to you guys word for word. Actually, let's not do that. So what I'm going to do, we'll take about a half hour or 45 minutes here, and I am going to hit on some of these different things. But I want to jump into the software and show how this works a little bit. So kind of at a high level, these are the new features that are part of the Vault client utility. The first one is a link generator. So, and again, I'll show this in just a second, but the link generator is, this happens a lot where we've got someone who's using the thin client, and they would like to be able to access, someone can only get to the thin client. They say, hey, can you just send me a link to the file you're talking about? And you can't, it's not very easy to be able to send them a thin client link. You can access it, you can get to it, but the link generator makes it really easy to retrieve the URL that would be needed for the thin client to look for a file. So you can pop that right into an email, send it over to them, and just make life a little easier on everybody. Then, man, I like all of these, really. I really like this one, the auto update folder properties to file properties. So this one's really cool, and the idea is I could take an entire set of components and enter it only in the folder information and pull it across. I'm going to show this. I'm not doing it justice talking. Creating local folders. Now we can do this. The old trick is go to working folder, but there's now a tool to say, okay, you created some folders in the Vault. Let's go ahead and just create those same folders in the working folder directory. So it's a quick way to kind of sync that up. We can always still use go to working folder. Of course, none of that changes, but it is a quick way to get to that. The visual lifecycle tab, and what that is, it's going to add a tab to Vault. So we're actually adding to the user interface so that we can understand where it's at in the lifecycle, its current state, available transitions, all of that information. So these 4 things I'll talk about here just a little bit, and we'll get an idea of that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen. And Gladys, I'm going to rely on you. If what I'm saying and what I'm doing get out of sync, please let me know. But I will try to keep all this right where it needs to be and minimize that. Fantastic. So the first thing I'll point out is we do have this idea of a lifecycle tab. And this has just been added to the Vault itself. It's nothing you have to do to make this happen. I can just come in here and take a look, and it will just show me its current state and then all the available states based off the life cycle that it's working with. I think this is just a great tool that I have that they've added to this. I mean, I can always see, yeah, it's work in progress, and if I wanted to, and I could change state and see what else we can do. But this is very clear that this could go to any one of those other states based off of where I'm at. So it's just an extra addition to what we're used to, what we've been working with. I'll take a look here at this one. This one's currently released. It can go from here back to work in progress and so forth. So in my case, the state is wide open because I can move between all of these. If this were more locked down, of course, we would see less of this information. But I think this is such a quick visual understanding of where we're at and what can happen next based off the life cycle state. And that's one of the big additions that we have within the 2019 tools. Absolutely love it. Let's take a look at another one here real quick. I'm going to go take a look at, I'll look at this folder that I have right here. So this folder, I went through and I configured it so that it can have a specific property against it. And the property that I have against that is just this one called customer. So this is something that's fairly common you might run into, where I want to take a folder and I want to designate it as a project. You know, it's project 123. It is for a particular customer. It's for a particular site that we're going to be working on, whatever it's going to be. So I'll fill that out on this folder. I'll just go ahead and grab this and say, let's edit that selected property. And I want to give it a really good, reputable company, so we'll call it Caleb Co. That sounds great. And I'll push that over to it. So now my folder is associated with this customer, Caleb Co. There we go. None of the files in here get that information. Just so we don't get too confused, I'll move off of that. So customer is a property on all these files, but it is not filled out. And that's just standard Vault behavior. I mean, I could come in now, I could edit all these files, I could fill them out and do that. But what I'm going to do is make use of the Vault utilities, and I can do this just from the right click. And you can see I'm going to right click on that, and I'm going to sync my folder properties to the file. So it goes through, takes a look at what properties are on the folder, and updates all 18 of my files. So now they match up, and they all have my customer name. Oh, they should. Let's refresh it here. My customer name built into it. Yep, there we go. So now they all have the customer name just associated to them. And I did that with a single property. Of course, we could do this with whatever number of properties we want to enter into that folder and then push them over. And it doesn't do it automatically, but I can do it to any particular file. So I can go grab this one, and that's where I can sync up to that. I love that one. I feel like updating properties is something that, you know, making sure they're all up to date, making sure they're in sync, all of those types of things, that can definitely take up some time, take up part of your day to go in and take a look at that. I really like how this goes through and pulls that information out. Okay, so we've got the idea of being able to see the information, you know, see the life cycle and where we're at. We've got the idea of being able to update the properties, you know, pull that information out. One other one, while I'm there, you saw I had that right click and it was showing up a lot of different options that I have, and that's the idea of the link generator. And with the link generator, I can go to a particular file and I can say I want to copy the URL. Okay. So we don't see anything happen here. It doesn't just pop out. But I'm going to go to Notepad, and if I paste, that is the URL that I would need specifically for the thin client to go and access. So it understands, you know, localhost, Autodesk, thin client, where it's at, IMAGINiT, right down the line. So I can drop that into an email and send it off. It's just a great way to access that directly. And there are other ways we can get to some of this information, but not, if I remember where it's at now, here we go, copy hyperlink. I'll go ahead and copy this hyperlink for that. So notice that this looks a little different. What I did, if I do the copy hyperlink, is it's copying the link to the data management services, not to the thin client. So that, what I've able to do there is, don't save that, is I'm pulling out of here, I'm extracting the URL for the thin client specifically. So it's a great way to pull that link out. It parses it for the thin client, and I can send it off so that people can open it directly from that. You know, it happens so commonly where I know exactly what file I'm talking about, and I'm trying to describe to someone, and they'll say, hey, can you just send me the link? I would have to log into the thin client and find it that way, grab the link and send that. Now I can do it directly from here. So I think that was a really clever addition to the different tools that we have available. Another one that we have, and again, we could get there before, but not easily, and that would be something like this. I'm going to go ahead and pull up my C drive here. So what I'm doing is I'm taking a look just at my C, because I want to look at my working folder that I have available. So here's my C, here's my vault work. You know what? I'm going to go just a different way. I'll just go ahead and grab this designs, and I'm going to say go to that working folder. So here's my working folder. It pulled up the information. I can see that. And, you know, it's about what I would expect. It's got a few of the files. I actually cleaned this up recently, so it's in pretty good shape. Well, I've created this new project, this 11.455 project, and I don't have any of those files over here, any of those, excuse me, not files, any of those folders. You know, I'm starting out, it's right now, all of this is blank, so I want to copy that information over. And I can do that. I can, if I right-click and go to that working folder, it'll create it, and I can go to the working folder and go to the working folder and go to the working folder. But using the IMAGINiT utilities, I can say create local folders. Sure. And it goes through, creates not only that top level, but all the subcomponent levels that I have for me automatically. So it's just enhancing what we could do in terms of going through and doing it manually. We're enhancing it so that it pulls this information out and puts it in there. So I think that's just a great addition for that. I'm going to stop sharing for a moment. So I did include in here the other tools that we've already had, because I will point out a few things. And again, sometimes people will install this or, you know, download it, installed it, I haven't really used it. You know, haven't looked at a whole lot that's within there. So I do want to point out a couple of things. Even though these aren't new to 2019, these are tools that are definitely beneficial. And one of them is the idea of standard folders. What the standard folders allow for is we can configure certain folders that automatically get updated when someone logs into Vault. So that might be templates, that might be design data, that might be whatever, and when someone logs in, it automatically gets the latest. So this is something that, you know, people have asked me for a long time, can we store templates to Vault? Should we store templates in Vault? And I said, well, you can. The problem is if they get updated, we have to make sure everybody gets them. Now we can configure, and it is a per user basis, so we still have to configure it per user, but we can configure each of these folders so that they automatically update and pull that information out. And I'll point that out. There's several other things here, but a big one is create folder from template. If you create, every time there's a project, you say, well, I need the project folder, and then I need a particular subfolder for drawings, and I need a subfolder for parts, and I need a subfolder for purchase components, and I need a subfolder, and you're creating those every time, please get these utilities. It will save you just so much time and headache of retyping something, messing something up, because we can create sets of folders from templates. And you can create really complex project structures just super easily. So I'm going to share again. I'll just jump out to my screen here. All right, and that's actually how I created this 11.455 project. But I'll go ahead, and I've got a utility that I can create folders from templates. And I've generated a template for this, and this is what I'm talking about. So I'll go through, and it says, well, what do you want to call it? So I've got, and I can have a whole series of different templates. I might have a mechanical template, a structural template that has different subfolders within here. So I'll just call this, how about Project Caleb Co? I like working with them. So I'll say, yep, Project Caleb Co, and go. And what it does is it created that folder structure for me right within here with each of those subfolders already in it. Of course, I can take that further, use the new tool, and say create the local folders so that it generates those down to my desktop. And now I've got that local folders. I can begin creating files, putting them in the correct location, and pushing it on through. I just think that's such a great tool to begin to use. By the way, most of this, the configuration, if you take a look under the utilities, here's where I can start working with the configuration, where I can begin setting up what I want for standards folders and so forth. I'll just point this out. I can add a particular folder, and I will add, I don't think I have anything much in here to add. We'll say a libraries. I want to go and I'm going to add in the libraries. I'm going to copy it to the local folder. I'll tell it which local folder I want to copy it to, and it's going to happen on login. So the next time someone logs in, and I'll throw it down here in designs, that's fine. next time someone logs in, everyone gets the folders, gets the local folders, and it pushes through. Or I could set a refresh date. Maybe we want to start using these the next time, next login, we'll go through here, and we'll set a refresh date that we want to begin using for that. I don't want to remove that. And I can add as many standards folders as I want, so that and I could do it for specific groups. So this is pretty, complex, the different things we could set up, but man, is it really great, because now we can set this up, someone logs in, it refreshes their folders automatically, it removes the idea of thinking about that. That was actually added in 2018. It's probably one of my favorite ones from that, the ability to set that up. So as far as the new features go, I'll jump down here and look at these components. There's the idea of this new lifecycle tab, understanding where it's at within that. The idea of being able to push properties that I would have over on my folder level, being able to push those same properties here to components, creating the local folders, being able to pull those local folders out, and then the link generator, just being able to right-click on something and getting the link of a specific URL. And that's, again, right for the thin client, going directly to it so we can pull that information. There are other tools that are available, and this is something that if you're not familiar with it, definitely ask me a question at the end if there's one in particular you want to see. But a couple of cool ones are the Lifecycle Change Notifier. It's going to give email notifications when something moves from one lifecycle state to another. So if it moves from work in progress to released, you can set up emails so that people are aware of that. You can also extract a bill of material based off the CAD data. So it's just the CAD data bill of material, but instead of doing it from Inventor, we can do it right from Vault, where we can get it out to an Excel or CSV file. One a lot of people use is this idea of creating a PDF, DWG, DXF, and I'll just share this real quick. This is something you probably noticed if you hadn't seen it before. When I right-click, I've got all this, create PDF, create DWG, create DXF. And what that allows me to do, DWG would be from an IDW. So I've got an existing IDW file. I just want to make a DWG from it. PDF would really be, I'll jump up here, from any DWG or IDW, I could go through and create a PDF for that. What it does, and it'll take that information, that particular rev, I can publish it to a Vault, I can publish it to an external folder. So I could just say, hey, take that and send it out to a particular folder. And then it creates a, well, I'm going to choose a folder, don't I? And then it creates a job in the job queue that goes out for that. And that's where the information is going to go. So it's going to take it and send it out to the job queue so that we can have that PDF generated externally. So if we look here at my job queue, sure enough, I've got a couple in here, creating some different information here. So it'll take those and send it out. So it's really a great tool that we have available. The other one, just real quick while I'm here, might as well do that. I'll just go ahead and grab this guy. The other utility off of this list is the idea of extracting a bill of materials. And what it will do is it'll go through, look at that assembly, and then pull out the bill of material information from that assembly. Now I can export that. Very good. So that is the client. And again, the client can exist separately. You do not need to have the client in place. You don't need to have the Vault server utilities in place. They are completely separate. The client runs locally inside Vault and basically gives you access to, it's ways to enhance what you're doing already. It's that idea of optimization, taking an existing tool and working with it in a much smarter way. Okay, so Vault server utilities. Again, these can be installed separately, and they are mostly, a lot of them are diagnostic. Some of them enhance different tools we have available. for Vault already, but the basic idea behind them is these are going to be administrative level tools. And the new one that we have on the server side is the job queue service. So what we'll see, and I'll pull it up here in just a moment, but this has been something that's been around for a while. If it's possible, you've got the job server running and you're running several different pieces and it's just flying along, and you have no idea that it stopped at noon on Tuesday, right? And it got backed up because there was one file that got in the way and suddenly it wasn't working anymore, or it's backing up, or whatever. And so what we run into is suddenly we're sitting there with, we go back and we're like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize this wasn't running. Now we've got all these files backed up. This allows you to, it's going to monitor the job processor. It can send daily job status summaries. So it's going to be an email that it'll send out saying, hey, here's a summary of how things are going. And it can tell you if different things occur. Something's not logged in right. The job processor stopped working. Jobs are backing up. And all of this can be configured. So again, I'm going to share my screen here real quick. And I brought up the configuration manager. This is typically sitting on the server is where it's going to run. It's going to be out there on the server. And I can specify which ones I want to look for. So I can say, let me know when it's not running. If the job processor is not running, I want to know. So right now it tells me my server status is running. And I can put in an email. Email me when that thing, if it stops running for 20 minutes, I need an email to know. I can notify when there's jobs that have been in the queue for 60 minutes. So it'll come back and specify my information here. I can have a daily summary. So if there's any errors, and you'll see this sometimes where maybe it's an older file and it failed to generate a DWF for it or something, and then you don't find out till later and you're looking through the queue. Now you can get this email summary letting you know what that looks like. Here is where we specify all the different Vault settings, what Vault we're logging into, what the server is, and then through here we can specify the different email that we have for that. I think my email is set up, yeah. My email, I don't think I have my email set up for this one. Valid user, yeah, okay. And so, but this tool, it's just a configuration tool that's going to sit there, run on the server, and then send out these emails as necessary as we go through. So this, it's a great addition. Job processor is wonderful when it works, and it is difficult to troubleshoot sometimes when you're like, when did it stop running? What's going on? I don't know. Now we can get those notifications and get to that a lot earlier than having to just, I literally have some customers who will say, oh, every 3 hours I just go double check and see where we're at with the job server so that I can understand that a little bit better. So that's the new one that we've added. I do want to hit on a few others. These have been around a while as part of these utilities, but I don't know if they have been used to the level that they could be. So I'll bring one up here. I'll pop this up. This is the publisher. Now, I mentioned the idea of being able to publish PDF files off that right-click directly from working with inside of Vault. I can right-click on it, say I want this kicked out to this particular folder. And that works fine. I mean, that's great the way it goes. However, we can, on the server side, not individual users, but on the server side, we can set it up so that we can have a published directory that replicates the Vault structure. Here I'll just specify which Vault we're looking at. And I can determine whether I want to publish items or files. And I can even give it a naming scheme. I can take the file name and the revision, right, so that it appends the revision to it. So if it's a G, it comes out as new file -G. And down here, I can specify which file types I want to generate. And it's as simple as coming in here and just typing it in. So every DWG in the Vault, this is what it's going to go to. So when it's going to go through and look at released items or files, that's what it looks for, is released information. And then we can run a scheduled task of when we want to do that. So we could say every day at midnight, run through, do the, publish those out so that our folder structure is up to date with that information. And this is a great way to pick that up. Let's take a look at one other quick tool here. Again, this has been part of the tool set for a while, but it is really, really very powerful. And that's the idea of the metadata update tool. And this was one where we've used it most is in bulk loading of files. It's possible we're going to put in a whole bunch of files, and now I want to be able to update all the information about those files. We pushed them in. Maybe we weren't filling out all the properties quite like we were before, but now we want to be able to do that. So I'll pop this up. And first thing I have to do is log into a vault. So I'll just go ahead and log into my vault here. And this looks at the vault folders, it looks at the information, and it's going to allow me to extract file information. So I want to do a metadata export. And I can determine which folder I want to pull this from. So I'll just go down here. This is the folder structure that I just had. I was looking at suspension fork should be fine. I'll do components. I'll grab all the components out of here. And then I can configure which columns I want to have associated to that. Do I want the file names? Do I want the descriptions? Do I want the created by? What am I extracting? What information am I pulling out of this? And I'm going to cancel out of that. I already have one set up that I'll go with, and then I'll just do this as a file out here to the desktop. So now it's going to, it says, hey, it's ready to go. We know what folders we're working with. We know what we're extracting. Let's pull that information. So it goes through, finds that, and pulls the information out to the desktop. So now, oh, I only had file name in there. Thought I had description. So now it goes through and extracts exactly what I'm looking at. I'm just going to rerun that again so I have a little more information. So I'll do an export. Thought I had edited a test for that, but maybe I didn't. So we'll grab description. We'll grab it. How about designer? Sure, it's right there. Part number. I'm going to go ahead and pull that out as well. And let's see, customer. Going down my list here, CCC customer. We'll extract that out. That sounds good. So I'll take that. I'll just overwrite that export file that I had a moment ago. Sounds good, and away it goes. So it takes it, does the export, finds the files, and kicks that information out. So now this should be a little more interesting rather than just the file name. I've got the file names, the descriptions, the designer, the part numbers, and then any customer information that I have associated to that. So in this case, I just want to fill out all this customer information so that matches up for everything. I'll just go down the list here. Pretty easy to do to say, yep, sounds good. Oh, I did it from the top level, that's why. So I'll go ahead and fill all that out. And I can save that and export and push that back in so I can import it back into Vault. So now I can say I want to update the information based off of that export file that I had and push it back in. I can add a comment if I wanted to, but I'll just go ahead and take it as is. It finds the information. I can overwrite it, update it. Which one is my file name? It is file name. That one right there. So the file name is what it's queuing up for that, and then it takes that to push it right back in. So I can update my entire vault with those types of tools. So it's a really great way if you've got a lot of data that you've put in that you can extract it out, review it, and then push it back in. So that was the other tools we have available. I mentioned a couple of those. The idea of Vault metadata is a big deal. Vault Publisher is also a really big deal. A couple of the other tools we have in there is a backup utility. It basically gives you a graphic user interface so that you can view the information for a backup. You don't have to do it just at the command line. You can input it a couple different ways. There's a command line tool if you're getting into scripting of some Vault operations, and a security tool to review the different pieces. So a lot of tools involved with these. Again, you can kind of see we're talking backups, publishing, security, very, very administration-based is what we'd be looking at for those. So that is what I wanted to give you guys, was this big broad overview of what's new within the tools, and then a quick, kind of a quick hit on some of the things. If you have been using them for a while, these are definitely ones that I suggest. But what we'll do is we'll open it up now for some questions and answers, see if anybody has any questions.